Welcome. I'm Ann Weiser Cornell. This is support for stressful times. Every time I say that, I am freshly aware that these times are stressful for me. And I bet they're stressful for you too. And in many ways, for me at least, they seem to be getting more stressful instead of less. So how are you doing, right? What would you like us to talk about today? Because I'm curious what I can give you some support and help with. Yeah. This is a moment, what we always like to do at the start of our webinar is to pause and sense. Pause and sense. It's really miraculous how helpful that can be. Pausing and sensing no matter what, right? You can do it in the middle of a conversation with someone. I can do it in the middle of a webinar. You can do it as you're falling asleep at night or trying to. It makes it more likely that you will if you pause and sense. You can do it. This morning I paused and sensed in the middle of reading the newspaper. I really needed to. So you can pause and sense when you're doing something that needs a little extra self-care. Yes. All right. Let's see what people are writing in the chat. More about resources. Being present with powerlessness. Yeah, that's a good one. Continuing to be with not knowing. Acceptance of everything. Ula writes, inside my body, it feels wired and anxious. Good. You're pausing and sensing, and that's what you're sensing. Very good. Yeah. The effects of physical isolation. Yeah. Somebody said, don't do social distancing, do physical distancing and social connecting. Amy has returned to work part-time and feels depleted, exhausted, and more emotional. Yeah. Depleted and exhausted are very understandable. Very understandable. Yes. Reopening. Sarah writes, I miss lockdown. Yeah. Well, there was something nice about those weeks, those months when we didn't have a lot of choices. Where I lived, you are not allowed to do so many things, and so are the merchants and retail people you might be dealing with. Can't get a haircut, can't go to the personal trainer, can't go to the restaurant and eat inside. Calm down. Nothing's possible. Now we have choices. Oh my gosh, choices are terrible. It's different in different places, right? I understand. We have a big world. It's different in different places. How do I cope with a sense of despair? Yeah. Well, let me start with that. I have a little tip. It's a linguistic tip. It has to do with the word despair. Despair is a noun. You know things are nouns if you can put the word the in front of them, the despair. What happens when we take our nouns and we turn them into qualities, that is adjectives? So what would despair become? Despairing, probably. And then we take the phrase, something in me. Something in me is despairing. And feel the difference. It's not necessarily a big difference, but there's some kind of difference between a sense of despair and something in me feels despairing. For me, the sense of despair sounds kind of abstract and monolithic and heartless, whereas something in me feels despairing calls my heart to open toward the something in me that feels despairing. And there's one more important thing that's implied when we use an adjective instead of a noun. And that is that this feeling is temporary. And the truth is, all our feelings are temporary. Everything you feel is on its way to something else. Something in me feels anxious rather than the sense of anxiety. Anxiety is the noun. I have a sense of anxiety. Something in me feels anxious. So play with that. If you've got a noun, try making it an adjective. So powerlessness, that's a noun. Something in me feels powerless. See what happens. Yeah, someone writes, Murray, hey Murray, nice to see you again. A sense of relief being with the people in this group. Yes, yeah. So what happens? So let me talk more seriously about powerlessness. And Ira writes, feeling that your effort is running out and you're running out of time. Yeah, and some of you may be talking about climate change as well. So there's a lot going on always in every life that we don't control. And then there's the things we do. Do you know the Serenity Prayer from the 12-step program? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, I'm not so sure I like the expression accept the things I cannot change. I think we might still want to have other feelings than acceptance toward the things we cannot change. That we might want to turn toward our own feelings of whatever, longing, frustration, like longing for a world different from this one, longing for something different from how it is now. You know what? It's okay to want that. It's okay to want things different. And then when there's something we can do to change things, to take those actions. To take those actions. And sometimes we take actions that may not add up. Part of us is saying that, well, that won't do any good. Who knows? Who knows? So I see people in the chat are using the something in me language. Something in me feels very sad. Something is longing for the future to become clearer. Exactly, that's an example of longing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And Susan is writing, it gives me more room. Yeah. When I say, I'm using an adjective, something in me feels this way, it gives me more room. Very good. So pausing and sensing and noticing that what you sense is how it is right now. It's how it is right now. In fact, this is an interesting thing you might want to do. I'm sensing something in me feels whatever, fill in the blank, right now. Try adding the words right now to your description of your own feelings. So you pause and sense, notice a feeling, anxious, sad, exhausted, make it an adjective. Anxious rather than anxiety, sad rather than sadness, exhausted rather than exhaustion, frustrated rather than frustration. Yeah, it's a noun if you could put the in front of it. And then use the language of something in me feels to name what you're feeling. And then add the words right now. So Mark writes, something in me is feeling deeply sad. And then Marco is adding, I am sensing. So that language is also helpful. I'm sensing something in me is feeling sad. Now add right now. You know, there's nothing we can sense except right now. We can fear feeling another way in the future. We can anticipate, we can want, but the only thing we can sense is right now. And what's wonderful is our bodies help us do that. So when you pause, when you sense, you're always sensing now. You might have an anxious feeling now about another time, the future. You might have a sad feeling now about the past, but the feeling is here now. And everything is on its way to something else, especially when it can be as it is. We don't fight how we feel. When we fight how we feel, it's less likely to change easily. Fighting how we feel. Do you ever do that? I shouldn't be feeling so sad. I need to stop feeling so angry. We try to argue with our feelings. We try to rearrange them. We try to talk ourselves out of them. And what if, instead of that, we say, okay, I am sensing that feeling is here right now. As simple as that. It's so much more simple. And what I'm saying is that spaciousness, that radical acceptance of how you feel, allows change much more easily than if we fight with it. Does that make sense? And by the way, if you wrote something in the chat and you really wanted me to respond, if it was a question or something, and I didn't, too much has been going by for me to pay much attention to. So do say it again, all right? Dinah writes, something in me feels frustrated and aggravated and sad about my frayed relationship with my sister right now. Good? Good. Yeah. Yeah. I love how you capitalize the word and. And is such a powerful helper when we acknowledge how we feel. Much more facilitative than the word but. Because when you say but, it's like you're negating everything that came before. But when you say and, you keep including. You're here, and you're here, and you're here, and you're here. We're all here. Lovely. Yeah. Susan writes, I'm sensing something in me longing for leadership and guidance. I share that one right now. Yeah. Johanna writes, something in me feels heavy and exhausted right now. Yeah. How is it to say right now? Does that help? Jane is asking a question. I'm sensing I am alone. That's an adjective. Alone is an adjective. That's fine. Yeah. It's not the alone. I am alone. But is it a feeling? So what's the feeling that comes from the fact of being alone? And you know, two different feelings, two different people can have completely different feelings about the fact of being alone. Can you imagine that? Of course. Somebody is really sorry about it, feeling longing, feeling missing, and another person, oh good, I'm finally alone. The kids are out. Right? So alone isn't a feeling, but it is an adjective. Call Nassim writes, something in me feels sleepy and impatient right now. Yeah. Karen writes, I'm sensing a lot of tension in my hands right now. So Doug is asking an interesting question, how to be with silent, numb parts. Because a lot of the conversation so far has been about feelings that are easy to feel. Exhaustion and dread and anxiety and sadness. But what if you know there's something there, but you don't have access to it? It feels like instead of a feeling, you have a numbness. It feels like there's something that would otherwise be communicating with you, and instead you're sensing that it's silent or it's hiding. Some people have this experience, and certainly I know that I have. It's as if there's a wall or some kind of barrier or obstacle between me and my feelings. Or I'm internally, the room is empty, but I know that somewhere in that empty room, something is hiding under the bed, hiding behind the curtain. How do I get it out of there so I can process my feelings? Well, of course, you don't. get it out of there. But here's the secret, I think, and that is you can start your relationship now with a part of you that is hiding or numb or behind some kind of barrier. Start the relationship before you can feel it, because you know it's there, or you wouldn't be talking about this. Wouldn't be a question. Yeah, it wouldn't be a question, how do I communicate with my numb parts, if you didn't know they were there. So I know they're there, and I'm starting the conversation by saying hello, wherever you are right now. Like I'm sitting in my room, the room that's apparently empty, but behind the curtain there's a little bit of a wiggle. Hello, wherever you are. I'm here and you are welcome. So let your feelings know that they are welcome even before you feel them. Beginning the relationship, beginning the conversation, even before you feel. And why would a feeling be hiding? Do your feelings ever get criticized? Do they ever get judged? Do they ever get told that they're wrong and they shouldn't feel that way? Maybe that's why they're hiding. Does that ever happen, not just inside you, but with other people? And has it happened in the past that when you, maybe even in your childhood, that when you had feelings and expressed them, maybe you got punished? Maybe you got criticized, judged, rejected, or even punished for crying, or for being angry, or for showing some other kind of feelings. And now you feel nothing. Well, maybe there's a history of rejection and hurt in that inner world with your feelings. So what can we do so that our inner world, right, the world of yourself, becomes a safe place for our feelings? And what we're doing already is really the start of that, this language, I am sensing something in me feels this way right now. That language and the attitude that it embodies is about creating a safe inner space where everything that you feel is welcome. Because we know it's there for a good reason, and it's on its way to something else in its own time. And so the more you create that inner atmosphere of safety with the feelings that you do have, the more the hiding feelings will feel safe to come out. And sometimes people say to me, you know, I started working with this process and now I have more feelings, and some of them are harder than the ones that were there before. And I have to smile, because the irony there, I think it's good news, but the irony there is that as you create more of a welcome, you are building up your ability to be a good listener to these feelingful parts of you. Word gets around. Somebody over here can listen to us. Come on over. So sometimes it feels like there's a lot of them now showing up, but they wouldn't do that if you couldn't manage them. Let me see if I've got some more questions in the chat. Yes. Patty writes, something in me feels so frustrated that when I'm activated, I forget to pause and breathe. You know, that's one of the most familiar things for me too. How do we remember to pause and breathe and be aware in those moments when we're activated, triggered? It isn't easy. When you do notice, say hello. Oh, I notice I got triggered. I got activated. Hello. I'm aware now. I'm giving that some company now. It's a practice that expands over time. The more you do it, the more you can do it. Yes. Very nice. Okay, I see some people saying, yeah, that it resonates. Yeah, and Dinah is connecting to my story about not trying to pull the feelings out of hiding, saying, yeah, when there's a new puppy in the house, you don't chase it down, you wait and speak softly. Yes. Sarah writes, I sense that something in me is freaked out and I was not aware that was there. And I want to say, let's all celebrate when someone discovers that there is a feeling, even a hard one, like freaked out, that comes to awareness, that feels safe enough and welcome enough. Now I can sense how freaked out something in me is, how burdened something in me's been feeling, how exhausted something in me feels. There's a celebration, like it's like the prodigal child, it's like the homecoming. Something that's been out of awareness can now return. Yes, nice. Yeah, Susan writes, we were not allowed to feel negative feelings in your family. My family too. Were we sisters? Yes. Anytime we felt something difficult, anger or anxiety, we were steered somewhere else. And that created a big backlog. And it created a low trust inside of me. I got out of the habit of trusting myself. Because our feelings are understandable reactions to the world we live in. We can acknowledge them at the time that they happen, then they don't have to knock us over and overwhelm us. This feeling of feelings being too much and overwhelming wouldn't happen to adults if we didn't have a history of not allowing them when we were young. Yeah, other people not allowing them. So this is a practice, right? It's not something you can just snap your fingers and start to do. But as you pause and sense and turn toward how you are, and if you like, you can use the language, I am sensing something in me feels adjective right now. Jan writes, lots of practice sensing a variety of feelings with my family over the past week. Yeah, how nice that our families give us so much to practice with. Very nice. Very nice. Great. Yeah. Karen writes, when I'm trying to hear my feelings, irrelevant, forgotten memories suddenly pop up. If they're forgotten, are they irrelevant? What if we assume that whatever's popping up is relevant somehow? We don't judge it as whether it's relevant or not. We just say, okay, that memory just came. And how do I feel? Yeah. Sarah writes, I would love guidance on your approach for being present on the phone for those who are isolated due to COVID, for those who are single and so lonely. Yeah. How wonderful that you are being on the phone with people like that. How do we sit with anyone who's having a hard time? How would you like people to sit with you? Here's what I don't want people to do. I don't want them to do what my mother did and try to cheer me up and steer me away from my feelings to something, oh, look on the bright side. And because I grew up like that, I still have a part of me that wants to say, well, you're still healthy. What do we want from other people? For them to hear us, for them to take us seriously? Frankly, I think the best way to do that is to say back some of their words. You sound like a parrot if you say back everything people are saying, but it's a natural part of good conversation to say back some of it. And to let it be the other person's turn. You know, there's something that people do in conversation where you talk about you for a while, and now I talk about me for a while, and people who are embarrassed by other people's feelings let that become, every time I get a turn, I talk about me. Every time you get a turn, you talk about you. And that's not very satisfying or helpful. Let it be the other person's turn for a while if you want to help them. So maybe the person says, it's so hard being so alone. I'm having a really hard time with it. And I say back, yeah, well, you're having a really hard time with it. It's hard being alone. See? That's not hard to do, is it? Most of the time, people really love hearing empathy for what they're feeling. You don't even have to understand it. You definitely don't have to feel the same way. That's what I would do. And I think as we are able to be present for our own feelings, as there's less and less to be afraid of in our own feelings, there's also less and less to be afraid of in other people's feelings. And isn't that a great world to live in? It's such a pleasure to be with you. We'll do this again next week. Always a pleasure. If you're familiar to our webinars, or if you're new, either one, it's just been great being with you today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care. Take care now. Bye for now. See you later, and have a great week. Bye.